And I was looking at Adrian, like, no, like this can't be happening. She's too small. She's too small. Like I was shaking. I was so afraid. I was literally like just trembling. She could have died.
Okay guys, so as you can see from the title, we have just had the craziest experience of our lives over the last 2 months, and we felt like it was time to share our journey.
Yeah, so hopefully we get through this without tearing up. It's been a time. So let's go. Where do we start? So on August 14th of this year, I went about my day, normal, with a little toddler. Ava and I went to the mall. It was a good day. We had a nice little girls' day out. And I came home, and about 5 o'clock, I remember these times and dates for some odd reason. I went to the bathroom, and I saw blood. Thankfully, Adriel's mom was there. And here's the thing. I really think, like, God, like, put things in place because he knows like we would need it. Yeah. His mom usually comes and visit on a Tuesday, and this was a Monday that she came. So that's number one, because she was on call. She would have been on call the Tuesday, so she said I'll come and visit on Monday. So she came, and I was like, babe, come upstairs, like I'm seeing blood. And he was like, me to call mom.
Obviously like, mom's a nurse, so I have no idea what to do. She's here, so automatically I'll just like, onto the nurse.
Yeah.
Because she'll know what to do and advise, accordingly based on her experience. So that's what I did.
That's what you did. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's probably my fibroid, or this bleed is probably normal. Like nothing is prompting me to think like, oh, this could be something worse than it actually is. So his mom came and she saw, and there was mucus in the blood. So for those who don't know, before a woman goes into labor, she loses her mucus plug. His mom saw it, she's like, And if you know anything about his mom,
when you see
there's
that,
like levels to her She's like, like it's, so when it's like, I just know. I knew what kind of it was. So she was like,
something serious.
Yeah, I think you should go to the hospital. And his mom, she keeps a game face. I guess because she's a nurse as well. So
and she
knows,
didn't want to scare us, maybe.
Yeah, so she knew, like, you need to go to the hospital. So we went to the hospital. Adrian taking a slow time. I'm like, baby, we have to go to the hospital.
Because in my head at this time, I remember last time I went to the hospital with Ava, it was just the fibroids acting up. It was inflamed or something like that, so it was causing a little bit of discomfort.
But
so
I wasn't in pain.
But you were in pain, but that's what was going through my mind. I just thought, okay, we're just gonna go, they're gonna check us out, and then back home.
Yeah. So, and mind you, at this time, I was 26 weeks and 3 days pregnant. And so we went to the hospital. They put us in a room, and for some odd reason, like, I started to feel like mild cramps. Like I had to keep using the bathroom, like I was on my period, like number 2, maybe TMI. But no, whenever my period come, sometimes when your muscles contract in your uterus, you have to go to the bathroom. So I'm thinking, okay, once again, I'm not like putting everything together to say maybe I might be having a baby. Like nothing is clicking, because obviously I'm too early. 26 weeks. I'm like, this can't be happening. So I was back and forth to the bathroom. This last time, the doctor finally came in. She said, okay, we're going to check your cervix just to make sure everything is okay, because we can see, like, on the monitor, like, I was contracting, but they wanted to make sure that I'm okay. So they looked.
There was like a look on her face. Bear in mind, up until this point, we were just chilling.
Yeah, he on the
Well, kind of chilling. Kiva wasn't so much. I'm on my phone. We're just waiting for the doctors and nurses to come check us and give us the okay. And that's all that's going through my mind. But when the doctor did the sweep, I think it's called.
No, she didn't sweep. She just wanted to check.
Okay, so when she did the check,
yeah.
there was a kind of look on her face to say, okay, it's time for the next step. And she kind of walked out and got the nurses.
But I remember her
She
saying
said-
like,
But she didn't say
I-
nothing about the cervix.
she said, all I could see is the membrane.
All I can feel.
Feel is the membrane.
Right, right.
Once again, nothing is
Nothing's clicking. She didn't say.
She didn't say it was
anything
dilated
else.
or anything. She just basically ran out the room, and a bunch of nurses came in, and they were like, "We're gonna have to wheel you to the other room. You're fully dilated." I went into complete like panic. Like I was.
So basically, for those who don't know, when you're fully dilated, the baby's coming. Like it's time.
Yeah,
It's happening, and at that point, that's when things got real.
it got
real quick. Like
she was like, "You fully dilated," and I was just looking at Angel. I just burst out crying.
and in my head, I'm like, can you undilate? Because I'm like, what can we do? Like, because we know it's 26 weeks and 4 days.
3 days at this
3
point.
days.
Yeah.
There's no way this is happening right now. So I'm just trying to think, is there a way they can reverse?
The
You
nurse
know what I
was
mean?
like,
She kind of
she's
giggled
like-
and laughed
she's
at
like,
me.
No, son, no,
Listen.
no, we can't
Yeah,
do that.
it was nuts.
And so yeah, I just started crying immediately, and I was looking at Angel, like, no, like this can't be happening. She's too small. She's too small. Like I was shaking. I was so afraid. I was literally like just trembling, and you were just looking at me. Was like, it's okay, it's okay. But what was like in your mind at that point?
I just kept thinking, God didn't bring us to this point for it to end without life. That's all that was going through my head. Like, I just had peace. And I guess I had that peace in the moment for her because she needed that peace in the moment. So, but I just felt peace. I wasn't worried. I wasn't stressed. I wasn't thinking the worst. It's just constant prayer was just going through my mind. I'm like, Lord, you didn't bring us here for it to end any other way but with life and a healthy kid, as healthy as she could be. So yeah, that's just
right.
what was going through my head.
Yeah, and in my head there was a battle. Like literally, like I heard the devil saying like, "Oh, you thought you were supposed to have a supernatural childbirth." And if you're new to our channel, I shared with you guys how we had a supernatural childbirth experience with our first daughter, Ava. We finally got pregnant with her. We prayed for a supernatural, pain-free delivery without any medication or anything like that. And the link is here above if you want to watch the video. So basically, the devil was like, "Oh, you thought you was about to have another supernatural childbirth. The joke's on you. You ain't about to have no. You thought God was.
Again.
Oh, you thought God was. Oh, like ha ha ha. Like literally in this moment, this is what I'm thinking, and the Holy Spirit now brought to mind the story about Lazarus when he died, and you know his sisters were so upset. His sister Martha came to him and said like, Jesus, like, if you were here, he wouldn't have died. But even now, basically, I'm gonna still trust you through this period. And I was saying, even now. That's all was in my mind was even now. Even now, I'm going to make a conscious decision, a deliberate decision to trust you. So in that moment, two things came into my mind: fear or faith. And I chose to have faith. I was still scared, but in the midst of that feeling of not knowing the outcome, I had decided to trust God. And so I literally was just singing, "Even now you're still moving," in my head, like, "Even now you're still moving." I had to, a song from William McDowell, had to sing like, "Even now God is still in the midst of this situation." And at one point, it just saw me mumbling. It was like, "You talking to me?" I was like, "No." And all of the texts that we had plastered around our room with Ava, like the pregnancy with Ava, just, you know, once again praying for a supernatural childbirth. I was doing the same thing with Araya, but now I had to literally just quote every text that I could remember about not being afraid, of saying, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God." So I was like just quoting text after text after text out loud. Well, not so loud that everyone could hear me, but audibly you could you heard I was saying something, but you just didn't know what. And I had to just literally hold on to God in that moment. And so now we're in the room. The nurses and doctors are coming in and they're saying, "Okay, this is what to expect." You wanna chime in?
Yeah, so of course they've been doing this for years, and they obviously have a better idea in a sense of what to expect. So they were telling us, this is how she's gonna look, and they were showing us pictures. But they asked, have you seen a premature baby before? And we were like, no. So, it's good to have an idea, because you can't expect a full-term baby, and then when a preterm baby comes out, it doesn't look the same. It could be shock. So they showed us pictures. They said, she may not cry, this and that, and just all these things, I guess, highlighting the reality of it. But they didn't know that we were praying, people were praying, and as we know, as believers, whenever God moves his hand, stuff happen, right? Things don't happen the way that people think is gonna happen. He does the impossible. So they were telling me all that stuff, and I'm like, all right. I was just not taking it too serious, because I'm like, God, at the end of the day, you have the last say.
You said, "Who says?" in your head.
Yeah, I'm like, who said? So they can say all they want, the doctors can say all they want, I feel like they kind of prepare you for the worst.
Yeah.
But man, when you believe, and don't get me wrong, things don't always pan out the way we want it to.
Like this situation, I didn't want this to happen.
No, we didn't expect this to happen. We didn't want it to happen. But there's something that we just believe that God has a way of turning situations into testimonies, right?
So he was like in his head, because we spoke about this. Because when the doctors were saying, "Okay, she might have a disability, she might come out this," they were saying all these things. She might not cry because she's so small. In my mind, I was like, "Who says?" Like, thank you for your professional opinion on the matter, but you don't have the final say. And I didn't tell him that. And we literally in that moment had the same thought. Like, who says? And this was a test of faith at this point. And so now they had to slow down my labor. They had me like
tilted,
like so my head was lower than my lower body. So just to slow down the labor process. And my water, first of all, one of the main reasons I was afraid to have a C-section was because of the catheter. Out of all things, I was like, I don't want a catheter. Remember? And I was like,
I didn't even know they did that.
I was like, guys, I have to pee. And it's like, oh, we can get a catheter. I was like, oh. I was like, no, I don't want a cat. Can you imagine? I'm about to have a baby, and that's what I'm thinking. I don't want a catheter. But anyway, and then my water broke. So at this moment, I was so uncomfortable, because imagine you being tilted, your water break, like fluid, everything is just straining. It was just so uncomfortable. Of course, they eventually changed me, but then like the water kept coming, you know, because obviously, baby's now on the way. And one thing I must say, she had a strong kick. Like she was kicking me until she came out. Literally, she was kicking me the entire time. She had a steady heart rate of 150 beats per minute, 155. So she was doing good. So that gave me peace, you know. Like she was really doing good. And so let's fast forward to the point where now I have to push her out. And no, I did not have a C-section. A lot of people thought because she was preterm, she was so young, I had to have an emergency C-section. But no, that wasn't the case. Thank God. I delivered vaginally. And when I pushed her out, she came out in her sack, apparently. Yeah. And once they took her out the sack, she let out the loudest cry her little body could give. And I was like, yes.
That just gave us peace. It was like, because we weren't expecting cry. Like, we weren't expecting her to cry. But when we heard that,
The doc,
It's like a thing that peace just overcame us, and we just knew that, okay, everything's going to be all right. As soon as I heard that cry, I was like, everything's going to be fine.
And I had told Angel, I said, the minute she comes out, I need you to go with her and don't worry about me. I'll be okay. And granted, I did not know that I lost a liter of blood. And I was so weak. I didn't understand why no one told me at this point, because I guess they didn't want to freak me out.
Yeah.
But I lost so much blood. They said it's normal for that amount of blood to be lost during a C-section. But vaginally, that's not good. So they were trying to figure out, like, why this girl bleeding, you know? And so that happened, and then you had to go with Araya.
Yeah, so this time I was in another room where the doctors were putting in lines and stuff. So what they do is put lines through the belly button, so they wouldn't have to put any needles in her hands or feet or anything like that. So they'll just do it through the belly button where the umbilical cord used to be, I guess, right? So that way it's pain-free and it doesn't harm the baby. So they're doing all that stuff. It's taking time. And what we didn't know as well, there were twins that were born that same night. So the neonatologist, he was back and forth between the twins and then Araya. And then the nurse clinician was in there. They had people holding a mask on her face to help her breathe. Like, it was chaotic. But in the midst of the chaos, I was just praying the whole time. I was like, God, just continue to watch over her. Just continue to watch over her. Because, listen, guys, when you're in moments of when you're not in control, the only thing that could bring us peace is God. And I feel like that's why so many people in the world, they're losing their minds, because they don't have control and they don't know what to do. Like, literally, God is in control no matter how we look at the situation, no matter the outcome. And that just gave us peace. Because I had to be there. I couldn't even go back to the room with Kiva, because I just wanted to be there throughout the whole time, just making sure that, Araya was straight. And it was like, what, 2 hours I was in there? The time flew, guys.
I don't know. And just seeing how small she was.
Yeah, and she was tiny, 2 pounds.
She was 2
like
pounds
2.1
and
pounds.
2 ounces. That's how small she was. We looked it up last night. That's a carton of milk.
Yeah.
That's how small she was, you know. And I remember I was talking to one of my good friends, and I was like, I can't imagine like something that happened to me and I wouldn't see my girls again. Because so many things could have gone wrong. The fact that I was hemorrhaging, the fact that Araya came so early, you know, like she could have died. You know, like they said 8 out of 10 babies survive. That's still a 20%
20%
chance that she could have died. And the mere fact that she let out that cry, you know, she was like, oh, y'all thought I wasn't going to cry? Who says? And, you know, it was so funny. We'll get back to the story, but what's so funny, when I looked up her name, you know, I just saw the meaning. Oh, her name means melody, song. I was like, oh, that's a beautiful name, Mariah. But then I looked, after she was born, I looked deeper into the meaning of her name, and it says Lioness of God. And it says one who has divine protection.
Come on.
Right? And I was like, what? So it was like before she even came, it's like her name itself declared that she had divine protection over what could have been. You know, because in that moment, I know the devil, if I chose fear, like, you know, things could have went left, you know, and he's like, yeah, I got her now. And even if things went left, thank God they didn't, I still had to make a conscious decision to say, I choose faith. I choose to walk in faith. So now, Araya had to be transferred to a different hospital.
Yeah, and before even that, so, yeah, she had to be transferred. So they were prepping her for transport. So we didn't mention that. So all the lines and stuff, they put them in the isolate or the incubator, as some people might know it as, and they prep her for transport. Meanwhile, because Kiva lost a liter of blood, she knocked out. She was tired. You were sleeping, I think, right, for a minute.
I don't even, yeah.
And then, but they came back and they said, we don't know how you lost a liter of blood, but your blood count is still good for you to go.
Because I could have they thought I would have
Miracles.
needed a transfusion.
Blood transfusion, yeah.
Right? And they was like, how? And I was like, I don't know.
Supernatural, guys, supernatural experience again. So it's like the enemy wanted it to shut it down because we had an expectation based on what we experienced last time with Ava, but it didn't happen that way. But there were still miracle experiences that took place with our little girl being alive, you know, still strong for what she was in that moment, and also Kiva not hemorrhaging further and complicating things even more. So then she had to be transferred to a different hospital that specializes in care for premature babies. So they got her prepped and transferred her over there. And that's when the journey began, I guess, continued.
Yeah.
Because we had to go home. This time my parents were with Ava. Thankfully, listen, family, big thanks to my parents who were there.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know what we would have done.
Because they're the only family we have here.
Yeah.
My mom wanted to come on a flight, but I'm like, I need you to come when she comes home.
When she's home, yeah.
But, you know, like, thankfully, someone was sick to watch Ava because I was like, oh my gosh, Ava, I'm swimming tomorrow. I was like, just thinking, like, I have to do. But thankfully, his parents.
Yeah, they were able to come over to us, look after Ava, brought her to the hospital with us where we were after Araya got transferred.
Yeah.
And then we were able to go over to the other hospital just to check on her. And that was a whole, listen, for those of you who've gone through this, you know, hats off to you. It's, you know, you just wouldn't wish this on anyone. It's such an exhausting experience.
And it's very traumatic.
Yes, and traumatic.
It's very traumatic. I think also I want to touch on, like, after I had Araya, I was very sad. Like, I just lost my pregnancy so abruptly. I remember, like, I would see pregnant women and I would just get I would feel envious. I would feel sad. I feel depressed. Like, it was, I don't know, like, it could be someone, like, in person, or I could see it on TV, or anything would trigger that. If I saw a young baby, I remember, like, we went to the store the day after Araya was born, and the baby was crying, and you thought I was about to sneeze. You remember? And I was crying in the store, and he was like, you didn't. It's like these things are just starting. Like, I was triggered so easily, you know, and it took a toll on me mentally. Like, I remember waking up at night, the first couple nights, which is so strange. Like, I would wake up at like 4:48. No, she was born at 4:48 a.m. So like around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, for like a week, I would wake up every time that same time. Like, it's crazy how my body just, you know, and I would just pray and cry. But I would say one thing that was my weapon during this entire ordeal was worship. I think we underestimate the power of worshiping God in the midst of a crisis. You just think about the story of Jehoshaphat when, you know, they were about to go into battle. And you know who was at the front? The worshipers. And they worshiped. And before they even saw, like, the outcome, the battle was already won. You know, and I literally worship every day, prayed we worship every day regardless, but it's a different kind. Yeah. It was a different kind because I felt like it was still a battle in my mind to say, like, do I trust God or do I curse him and die, like Job's wife said? You know, it's like, what do I choose to do in this moment? And I had to just put my mind in a place where I had to trust God. I had friends who I would call. I remember I had a friend who was pregnant at the same time, and you know, we cried on the phone together. We laughed together. Like, we had a village of people who knew. Like, once our close friends knew what was happening, everyone was just like, we're praying for you, we're praying for you.
And the support was tremendous, you know. Big shout
Yeah.
out to all our friends that supported us during that time, you know.
Yeah.
Big thank you.
Like, I swear I try not to cry throughout this entire video. Let's see if I'll make it. But the prayers of our friends, I remember just texting some of my girlfriends. I'm like, hey, this is what's happening. I'm going into labor. Pray for me. Like, I had friends just up that whole night praying. And God kept me. He kept me and he kept my daughter, and he even kept Adriel during this whole ordeal, because in all times we speak about our perspective as the woman, but I'm sure as the man, you know, you had your moments as well.
Yeah, it's crazy because all I kept thinking about was obviously I still need to provide for my family during that time. Thankfully, I closed a big deal August 1st. So we had enough funds to last us, you know, about 3 months. Again, timing, like what are the chances? This is what I'm saying, like when God's in control, like we have no reason to worry or fear about anything. It's just human nature. Is, you know, we do it naturally, but God doesn't want us to worry, and that taught me like just relax. So even in that moment, instead of me being frustrated, because bear in mind, guys, we were driving back and forth from Foothills Hospital. We live way down south. It was like a 35 to 40-minute drive one way.
Day.
So back and forth every day, spending 2 to 3 hours at the hospital, coming back, picking up Ava from her school, or my parents, or when she started school.
Yeah.
Like, it was insane.
It was a lot to juggle.
And then dealing with the emotions on top of all of that.
Yeah, because I remember, like, Ava was so used to seeing my tummy, and she would always touch it and say, Rai Rai. That's the nickname that she gave her sister, Rai Rai. And so I said, oh no, Rai Rai's not here. Rai Rai's at the hospital. So I got to keep, like, telling her where Raya was. And then, like, sometimes I remember, like, getting Ava ready for bed one night, and I remember when Ava was a baby, and I was like, well, my baby's not here. Like, it just, and I had to just leave the room, and you had to deal with Ava. I just started to cry. Like, that was the hardest time of my entire life. I never cried so much. Like, I would be pumping and crying, you know, like, it was just such an emotional time for me. Like I said, I don't wish that on anyone. But what made that experience better for us is that staff at Foothills Hospital, like from the unit clerks to the nurses, the doctors, they made us feel seen. They treated us with such respect and love. And Araya got the best care that she could have gotten. Like, she had some phenomenal nurses.
Yeah.
Like, one of her nurses, so we usually, over here, I don't know how to do it in other parts of the world, but if you have a baby in the NICU and you create a bond and you feel comfortable with certain nurses, you can't ask them to be a primary nurse. So whenever they're on shift, they can look after your baby. And there were just a few. Sarah was like...
Yeah, shout out to Sarah Sydney.
Mary, like all of them, they were really great with her. And one of them, Sarah, she advocated, like, we need to get these tubes out so she can hold her baby, the lines out. Because it was 5 days and I still hadn't held Araya.
Yeah, because you can't hold with the lines in the belly button, you can't move them about much.
Yeah, so I hadn't held her in 3 days.
Can you imagine
5 days.
Can you imagine not holding your baby
5 days
after birth for 5 days?
5 days. Like, so that did something to me. And I just remember the first day I held her, I was so happy. You know, and you know, like she had CPAP on, from plus 6 pressure. So CPAP, it just adds tiny pressure into the lungs to help develop it, to make it stronger. So she had that on for 2 months.
Yeah, 2 months.
For about 2 months, she had that on, you know, and we were gonna just show a bunch of photos
from day one to where she's at today. But
she came a long way, and I must say she is a fighter. That little girl, she fought. Like they would say some babies will come in at that age and they wouldn't even poop properly.
Yeah.
She is a super pooper from day one. She'd probably be embarrassed ahead of me, but no, when she pooped, I was so happy. Like she was pooping, and that like she developed a nice suck on her pacifier. I said, this little girl is so smart. Like she just grasped onto things very quickly, and the doctors and the nurses were just amazed at her progress.
So before she was transferred, actually, I just wanted to say there were roller coaster. Even though she was doing really well, there were some moments where, you know, like she had to have blood transfusions because her blood count dropped. Sorry, her hematocrit dropped. Her levels were supposed to be a certain amount. They dropped to really low where she needed a blood transfusion.
She looked pale. The doctors didn't know that she was a black baby. Not the doctors. Some of the nurses didn't know that she was a black baby.
Yeah,
They
when
were
they
like,
saw us come in, they're like,
okay. Like,
yeah. So there were moments, ups and downs, but most of the time we walked in that place, we were like, you know, hey, it was like a joy and happiness that was on our hearts that I think it really resonated with a lot of people. Like, as Kiva mentioned, the unit clerks, we always had a chat every time we went. You know, it's like we built a relationship with people there, and it was actually sad to leave when she got transferred.
Yeah.
Because it's such an amazing experience with the staff.
Yeah.
But again, from going 40 minutes to one hospital as opposed to 50 minutes away, like we needed her to be transferred because that journey was taking a toll.
Yeah, but back to the transfusion. What's so funny, like before when I was reading our Supernatural Childbirth book, when I was pregnant, I kept seeing, you know, just praying for her blood. It's crazy. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like I was praying, I was like, God, be with every organ, system, cell, everything. Be with her blood, specifically her blood. I don't know why. It's like the Holy Spirit just put it on my mind to pray for her blood. And she got a blood transfusion. So, you know, it's like...
You're just praying that she would, because there are risks, right, guys, with blood transfusions. So we were just praying that there were no issues.
There were no issues, you know, but she did really well with them. She had 2 transfusions, you know. I was upset about that. I would cry. We felt really down because it's like you just want
them to progress as best as possible,
you know,
right?
and then it said she had 2 cysts in the back of her head, but there's nothing to worry about. Thankfully, they're gone now.
I felt like sharing with some of our friends so we can have prayers, right? Like, listen, the fervent, effectual prayer of the righteous availeth much. So when people are praying, that's all I kept thinking about. The more people we have praying, you know, the better it will be. One answered prayer after the next.
Yeah.
Even after she was transferred, it wasn't the best experience at South Health compared to Foothills, but I would say we still met some great people at Foothills, and we were able to spend way more time, like much more time with Araya. Like Kiva would spend the day there.
Yeah, we dropped
from like
Ava
9
off
till 3.
Yeah, I was there the whole day, and they said like skin to skin. They told me the first day, or the first time I held her, they said the more skin to skin you do, the quicker she'll come home. I was like, say less.
Say less.
And one nurse was like, you know, you probably won't come here every day. I'm like,
bet.
I missed 3 days out of 83 days she's inside the NICU.
Yeah.
2 because I was sick, and 1 because I needed a personal day, and one of her primary nurses were on shift, so I felt comfortable. But 80 out of 83 days ain't bad, you know. And I'm just really thankful, y'all, to just see how God's hand has been just over this entire situation. This could have been a different story.
Very different.
You know, I remember Adria was upset because her little belly button was poking out, and I said, babe, that's the least of our concerns. She is going to be okay. Like, there are babies who are in this NICU right now fighting for their life. And we're not going to go through all the details because there's so much. 83 days is a long time.
Yeah.
But finally, I remember when they said...
And also babies were there up to 44 weeks. There's been babies who stayed there adjusted age. So
who was there? Who were born around the same gestation age that she was born?
Yeah, and Ava left. Araya left at 38 weeks and 4 days.
Yeah.
Or 3 days.
Yeah.
So she left before her due date when they anticipated that she would have left on her due date. So we have to give God thanks for that as well.
Really, and then nurses was like, one of the nurses said, usually babies who are born at her gestation age, they don't leave the hospital the time that she's leaving, but also when they do leave, sometimes they have oxygen because they still can't breathe room air, and or they have a feeding tube. She ain't got none of those. Like, she walked out of there like, get me out of this place. It's time for me to go home.
Go home. Yeah.
And on November 7th, 2023, Orion came home, and I had the biggest smile on my face. I couldn't contain myself. You know, I was just so happy that after 83 days, I finally got, you know, like that night I stayed in the NICU, and that was the first time I held her with nothing. She wasn't hooked up to any monitors or anything like that. And it felt so free. It felt so, you know, like it just felt so good just to hold her. Like, no nurses around. It was just me and her in that room that night. And it felt so good. And she's a feisty little girl.
Oh man.
She's a fighter.
Yeah, she was like, nurses would be like, yeah, we could hear her down the hall. You know, even on night shift, you know, everyone knew who she was
from day one.
'Cause she was so loud.
Yep.
Yeah. So hopefully she'll be a singing. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, her name, right? But I want to leave this video with. We want to leave this with value. I would just like to encourage anyone who is going through any kind of crisis, or even if you're pregnant and experience loss or complications, whatever the case may be, you're going through a storm in life.
Yeah.
And I remember I heard someone said, life is a cycle. So either you're going through a storm,
you're
just starting a storm, you're in a storm, or the storm is just ending. It's a cycle. Yeah. And without a test, there won't be a testimony. The Bible says that we shall overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. This is our testimony of how God covered us. And He can do the same for you. Faith is something that we have to be intentional about. We don't need big faith. He said if you have faith as small as a mustard seed. Tiny. He didn't say if you have faith as big as a mountain. He said small as a mustard seed. And He size faith, and He's willing to work with that, you know. So it's like, cast your cares upon Him because He cares for you. And worship. Be intentional about spending the time with God, because when you spend time with Him, you allow Him to take over the situation. It's no longer what I could do, because in this moment, I could have never prepared myself to say that I had no control. When she came, all of our plans were out the door.
Gone.
Financially, everything out. We had a plan. I'm a planner. I wasn't able to prepare myself for this. So just be encouraged to know that God is still God. And He is in control. He is in the midst of everything. And you just have to learn to trust Him.
I'd say just embrace the experience. Throughout that experience for me, I was trying my best to work and be there for my family at that time, and emotionally and mentally it wasn't conducive, so I had to just drop one for the moment. Unfortunately enough, God provided for me to be able to do that. But just embrace the moment, stop fighting it. Don't try and change your feelings. Tell God how you feel. Ask Him to do the change. And when Kiva says worship, it doesn't necessarily have to be one aspect, like reading a Bible or praying or music. It doesn't have to be just one, you know. Do whichever one suits you best in the moment. For us, sometimes it's just listening to gospel music and worship music. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And that can change the atmosphere. So guys, we just felt like we had to share it, you know. It's been a journey. It's
It
been a
really
journey.
has
Lots
been.
of tears, but lots of joy.
Yes, like I'm so happy I can't cry. Like that's where I'm at. Like our wedding day, we didn't cry on our wedding day. We were so happy. You know, like when we left the hospital, I was just happy.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at now. We're just happy, and I'm thankful. Every time I look at her, I saw the child who was 2 pounds and 2 ounces, and now she's almost 8 pounds. I would bring her down to see for you guys to meet her, but she's asleep, so we'll just show pictures.
Probably in the next video.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But guys, we can't leave without reminding y'all that you are blessed and highly favored. We will see y'all when we see y'all. Bye.